Well, as promised, Shay and I are back to talk about Final Fantasy 15. So, Shay, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you, Square Enix, for finally releasing Final Fantasy 15. I still can't believe it.
Right?
We're about a week away from it, and it still feels unreal that we have that. Like,
Mm,
this isn't the real game. It's
right.
just some coma that I'm in right now.
Yeah, it feels kind of like a dream, really.
And yeah, so we're just gonna go through. Essentially, gonna talk about how far we are in the game and kind
Hmm.
of go through all the big key points like the story, the gameplay, all the mechanics of the games, the art, the music, all that kind of stuff. We're going to begin with the story because I feel, well, I always do when I do reviews, but I also feel that it might be one of the more interesting topics to discuss
Right.
on a lot of reasons. In that, this is a giant JRPG,
Yeah, the
and
biggest one in a while.
it's from Square Enix,
Hmm.
who is very well versed in long ass cutscenes.
Right.
And this game does not have a lot of cutscenes.
I'm.
I think it takes maybe 10 minutes, if that, to get into gameplay, really.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of Western storytelling where everything is kind of told as you're kind of playing the game. And then some set piece things happen, like in between to kind of begin chapters and set chapters away. And there's some stuff in between there as well. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's everything is kind of told as you're doing the game. How do you feel about that?
I like that King's Glaive had a point.
Yeah, that's the thing. I don't feel. Take yourself away if you are just a Final Fantasy fan, or just a fan, like, you heard a lot of hype about Final Fantasy 15, you kind of want to jump in.
Yeah.
Do you think people are going to be lost that have, like, no idea anything
Oh
else? Because,
no, I think if you haven't seen King's Glaive, you're really not missing a lot because the game does such a great job of explaining the bigger points.
I don't know. It's just, you start off, and the king just sends you away, and then you're on this road trip,
Hmm.
and you kind of don't know why if you really haven't seen, like, the movies and stuff. And it's kind of weird how they have the clips from the movie, which is just very kind of, it seems out of place. And
Sorta.
there's the anime as well. I mean, we
Oh,
have, like, such a huge knowledge because, not that we've seen the movies and that stuff too, which we have, but I'm talking about, we have been following this for 10 years, so we just have, we know
the
what
little
the
every
the
little
story
snippet
points
that
in.
came
Yeah.
out, we collected it and we hoarded it.
But at the same time, it's also, like, not confusing, it's not convoluted, so I do think it wouldn't be lost. It's just kind of disappointing that there's actually, even with the storytelling that they do in the gameplay, it's more
Hmm.
about the four key characters: Ignis, Gladius, Prompto, and Noctis.
Noctis.
And it's just about them going on this road trip and just having not a good time, but having a time, and
Having
them
an
getting to know each
experience.
other and you getting to know them, and that's kind of really what the story is about. There's some stuff happening in the background, and every single time that there is something that's very key to the story,
Right.
it's awesome, and it just kind of makes me want more. I feel this is the exact, as I keep on playing it, this is the exact way I felt about last year with Metal Gear Solid 5. The best gameplay the series has ever seen, but the story was very light and it made me want more. And I guess that's not necessarily a bad thing, because thinking back to all the other Final Fantasies where you just have to sit down and, like, watch cutscene after cutscene after cutscene, even
Yeah.
though
I feel
there's
like
some great moments, it's nice to be able to play at the same time.
I feel like that was kind of Ten's big fault.
Yeah.
And they really wanted to show the power of the PS2 at the time.
So, is there anything story related that you wanted to talk about, or any characters that you wanted to comment on?
In the beginning, and this really tells you that it's a story of four friends, and it feels like they're setting up for a bachelor party road trip kind of thing. In some ways, it kind of is that because Noctis is supposed to get married, and you know you're on the trip with your buddies, and it's interesting seeing how the relationships sort of mesh and intermingle, and how the characters are kind of being fleshed out as they journey.
What about Prompto?
What about Prompto? He's a whole bag of insecurities.
I feel like I feel like it's very easy to hate on him,
Mm-hmm.
and it's very easy to like him if you're like a preteen girl. So I
Well,
feel like that's what he's there for. I feel like out of everybody, he's the most like
he's supposed to be the
character
everyman.
type. Yeah,
He's
it's just
supposed
he's like he acts so young, but he's supposed to be the same age as like Noctis.
Yeah,
But I suppose Noctis in a way is very brooding, like a lot of other Final Fantasy heroes. So I mean, who's to
yeah.
say who's?
I
I
feel
do
like,
like his kid-like charm sometimes.
I feel like Prompto is supposed to be the representative for everyone that isn't in the royal line.
Everyone who loves selfies.
Honestly,
Yeah, that's for sure. He's kind of like he comments multiple times about like being able to go on this journey with everybody. He's
yeah.
not part of the Crown's Guard. He's Noctis's friend, and he just wants to come
Mm-hmm.
along basically. So he has a heart there, but he's also
Kind of
kind
obnoxious.
kind of obnoxious.
Oh, all the friggin' selfies, jeez.
We'll get into that later. Anything else in the story that you want to say before we move on?
I'm liking it so far. I'm really liking it, and I kind of was worried with the movie and with the anime where they were going to be going.
Especially because the movie was just
So
incoherent in so many levels.
it was almost like a lucid
plot.
dream.
Yeah, which I'm glad they got that out of the way. I'm like, we talked about it when we did the review of all the media stuff. That
Yeah.
I was worried about the story because of how weird that the movie was and just conjointed and everything. So
Yeah.
I'm glad this is held back. But imagine if that was crammed into the game. I bet it would have. One of the reasons why it got held up, maybe because that was supposed to be part of the game. I imagine at some point.
Oh man, could you imagine having to switch character? Oh, it wouldn't be unlike Final Fantasy to do that. But do you know how much longer this game would have been if you had to play the Kingsglaive section?
It's just it would have probably been just like an opening cutscene, just like taken forever, but like less
Oh man,
CG or
if
whatever.
if like the first 25 hours of the game was you playing as the King's Glaive.
Roxas
Yeah, exactly.
playing as Jesse from Breaking Bad.
Yep,
Yeah. So
that's about it. That's about it for story, I guess.
right. I want to get into the thing that excites me most, which is of course the gameplay, specifically starting with the combat. It's a little bit different from the demos that have been out. The free one that came out, the premium demo, and then there was the Duscae one that came with Final Fantasy Type 0. It's a little different, but it's pretty close to the same. To boil it down, it's very much like Kingdom Hearts, I suppose. It's an action RPG. How are you liking the combat? What do you think about it?
I guess when I first
How are you faring, I should say?
I'm getting A's, except for time. I'm usually really bad with time. I usually get like a C or D.
You know, the rankings are kind of all over the place.
They are.
It doesn't seem to be consistent, so I never really care about the rankings.
But my offense is always A plus.
I am, obviously, as people are watching this, they're seeing footage, and it was really difficult for me to get a hold of the combat while trying to capture footage,
Oh.
because I want the footage to look cool and not me falling down and missing dodges and stuff like that. At this point, I am in Chapter 7, and I have over 21 hours about... And I think I'm getting quite able at the combat. I would say I've been able for quite a while now, but it's a lot more intricate than I really thought it was going to be. Just like all the dodging and just like the active time, and
Right.
the spells are so weird too. What do you think about?
Making the grenades.
Yeah, for people that don't know, magic is very weird in this one. You essentially go to these crystals that
Yeah,
you draw magic from, kind of like Final Fantasy VIII.
Yeah, just deposits.
And then you... Right, and then you can basically make grenades, and when you make like one grenade, it'll make 3 using so many like deposits of like a fire crystal, an ice crystal, or a thunder crystal, and eventually you'll be able to make Thundara and all the other ones based on this leveling up system, which
using
is kind
the
of
ascension.
Yeah, I'm not really. It's kind of Sphere Gridish like, but it's. I think it's a little too complicated, or it's just like kind of all over the place. Things could have been streamlined a little bit more.
They could have.
There's a lot of options, and
they could have put all of them together. or make them character specific, which
Yeah,
they they kind of just throw everyone together, but then they separate it into like waiting and whatever. Like,
it's hard to keep track of everything. And for me, I pretty much have been focusing just on Noctis because that's the person you control.
mm-hmm.
And even if you improve some of the AI stuff, what I think the AI is pretty good for the
uh,
most part.
I've been giving the AIs like the extra abilities, the extra skills. So like Gladio has down hammer or whatever, and Prompto has that starburst shot.
I do like how you can give them techniques which you kind of use in battle.
Yeah.
Not like a limit break, but more of
Oh,
like a just kind of an assist kind of
yeah.
thing that happens
I
as a
like the
meter builds up.
linking. I really like the linking, especially when you had Core with you.
Yeah, I like that. There's another guest character that comes in that I just got through,
Mm-hmm.
and guest characters are really nice. And it's another one of the things, just like the story, where I'm just looking forward to the next person. I'm like, man, that was really fun to have that person with me.
Yeah.
I want another person with me. That's very cool to have someone else. And it's just like I said, it's kind of it takes a while to get used to the combat and the
Right.
intricacies, but once you got it like down pat, you it's so awesome to just watch everything
It
play out.
really flows nicely.
Or if even if you're bad, if you're having like a hard time, and then you do this one cool move, you do like a good parry,
Yeah.
and there's nothing like some of those moments where you just get like the perfect alignment.
Yeah, perfect
Uh,
timing, perfect. Like everything just came together, and you just like oh, like the very first one of the first bosses in the game, that dual horn. How I told you that I accidentally like critted on it. I didn't realize it, and I threw just a random bomb at it, and it did like obscene amount of damage because that's what it was weak to.
yeah, magic is actually, now that you bring that up, it's something that I forget about. I use it when there's like a big group of enemies, but it's one of the most powerful things in the game, and that's why it's more limited. It's not based on MP. MP is used for your warping ability, which
Mm-hmm.
only Noctis has, where you can like go across the map, hit somebody, go across the map, and
Or hang
hit
around.
somebody again, or hang around to basically survey the area and kind of regain your senses.
Yep.
And then it's used for dodging as well. So I think that's really cool for an MP use and
Yeah.
having these grenades.
It's different. It's definitely different for how they're approaching it.
Not so much lightning, but whenever you use any kind of blizzard or fire magic, it infects, not infects, it
Yeah.
affects the
You
environment,
have a big
and it's
area of
so
effect.
cool. Did you fight any of those big like woolly mammoth things that are in Disgaea? You know what I'm talking
Yes,
about?
I have.
Have
Oh,
you used?
I beat one. I at the time I was only like 16 or 17, and it was like 35, and I
Yeah, that recommended area level. I went down there too, and it was like, wow, these things are like way powerful. I should just go to the next story thing
well
because
I
I
actually
feel out of place
I
here.
actually killed one, and it was another one of those moments where it was just like I did the right thing at the right moment, and I did like a major amount of damage, and I was so proud of myself. But I ran out of the area as soon as I did
Yeah,
it.
I've had lucky times where I'm like, okay, I've survived this, but only Noctis is alive, and I gotta get out of here.
Yeah.
It's insane in that area because there's been moments where I'm fighting a monster, and then some other monsters join in, and
Yeah.
then some guards from dropships come in from ahead, and they're all battling. And I had only one point. The game has run smoothly. I've had no glitches, nothing. But there was one point where there was a little bit of a slowdown because there was probably at least 30 people on the screen with the monsters and the soldiers and your party members.
Yeah, it gets a little insane, especially because I was in one area, and while I was looking for something, I got attacked by like three groups of monsters and like four dropships, and I was like, "Come on!"
I gotta get out of here.
I know, and every time I tried running, more stuff came after me, and I was like,
It's can be a challenging it sometimes. Anyway, but those mammoth things, I used fire on it, and it's amazing that it singes their fur.
"Mm-hmm,
It is so many details go into a lot of these graphical things,
yeah,
which are just like astounding. Like I said, it's devastating magic, and it just the whole area is just it's just magical. I'll save that more when we get into the art and stuff. I want to go through some other mechanics that are not combat related.
okay,
I like that you can save anywhere. That is
mm-hmm,
fantastic. And the auto save for when you get to certain points, that's also nice, just in case you don't do anything.
Right.
The only time that you can't save is when you do like very story specific missions, like a base or like a
Oh
dungeon.
yeah, like getting the swords or the weapons, the kings, whatever.
Essentially, yeah.
Yeah.
Which is fine because they have actually checkpoints in there too, so that works out. There's nothing worse than going through something and then dying and then
Mm-hmm.
having to like retread after no saving, or the power goes out, or whatever
Yeah.
happens. I'm very good at that. Quests are very.
They're not bad. Some of them are just kind of odd and.
The Witcher 3 has some of the best side quests in any video game I've had. You could be some old lady could ask you to get her pot back, and it goes into this huge thread, and it's like, wow, this is like a huge thing, and it's intricate, and the story's amazing, and there's no story like side quests that are like amazing. It's like, go get this thing, here's some experience, go kill these monsters, here's some experience,
Yeah.
which is fine. That's more of a mute the thing and just kind of listen to something and just do random things. It's fine. It's very MMO like.
Mm-hmm.
There's no whatever in that. I do like hunting monsters. Reminds me of 12.
Yeah.
But it's not like there's anything crazy cool. Except there are some monster fights where they are pretty cool. And I'm sure later on, I've heard a lot of post game content are like some really cool dungeons and bosses. So
Hmm.
that's probably where like the great stuff is. So I mean, they're fine, not great, but they're whatever.
Yeah.
Quest request, whatever. I like that the night when that comes, it means something.
Yeah.
And it's
Ooh.
so epic when you're like driving down the road past the nighttime and then something appears before you and you're like, holy shit, I'm in danger. Like this is
Yeah.
that scale of like danger is just so fantastic, and it sucks when you can't like get away, but it's very cool to like have that kind of I like the whole camping mechanic, I suppose, too.
I
And
do. It
all
it adds like that brotherhood feeling to it.
yeah,
I like
the
that.
same thing with like everyone's party skills. Like I don't like fishing. I haven't gotten good with Noctis's fishing. I just don't
I leveled
want
it up
to really.
once.
I did too, and I keep on trying to fish where there's spots, and then they just don't come to me. Like they'll be that red bar, and then they'll just not do it.
I tend to break
They'll
my
just
line a lot.
kind of weird. So he is way back in level 2, and everyone else is like 5 or 6. The food stuff is really cool that you can like
Oh.
basically boost your stats before like a big battle. That's pretty cool. That is
Yeah.
some of the best looking food I've ever
When
seen.
he throws the plate down and you get to see what he made, it's really
It's
good.
kind of annoying
Hmm.
when Ignis gets like a new recipe idea. He's like, "Oh, I got it," and someone's like, "What do you got?" "I got a new recipe idea." Like that's the exact same he thinks every single
I'm gonna
time.
taste
There's a
test
pot.
it for you.
Yeah, like, oh, that looks good. I'm like, okay, we could have recorded a couple more lines, or have that not be like a little scene every time, and just, it's
With him snapping his fingers.
yeah. And when you go to a restaurant and you eat, and there's the little bell, that makes
Yeah.
sense. But when there's like a little bell and you're camping, it's like, oh, that's a little weird. But it's like a sound effect, so that's whatever. And then we'll get into the photo stuff right now. At first, I thought this was
pronto.
really stupid, and for the most part, it is really stupid for Prompto's photograph skills, because a lot of the times it's just like, these are the dumbest photographs, but then sometimes he gets really amazing ones.
Yeah.
And it's fantastic. It's like, wow, that is an amazing shot. I have this shot of fighting some flan in the middle of the night, and there's one that I shot up in the air, and it's like leagues above everybody else. It's just such a great shot. But it feels right though for all of his dumb things that he takes. It's like, why would you take that? I was showing our friend EJ the game,
Yeah.
and I was checking out a cabinet because there was like a press X to read something next to it, and he took a picture, and he's like, "Oh, good." He took a picture of you looking at a piece of wood or something like that. It's like, yeah, it's really stupid, but it's also funny and
It
charming in some
Fits
ways
in
as
with
well.
his personality.
Same thing with the. Did you unlock the chocobos now?
Yep.
Chocobo is probably number one. Number one in any video game. I would say before that, I would say 7 and 9 are the two really good Chocobo games.
Yeah.
But this one is so close to all the. I don't know how the ranking would go like off the top of my head, but they feel like big creatures. You can give them greens to help them level up a little bit if you walk around with them. They're so cute, and you can customize your color. It's just amazing. Just running around was kind of getting tedious until you get the chocobos.
And then you can drift with them. I like that.
You can drift, you can race with it.
The drifting,
That's so
or
funny.
the
That's
fly, or the fluttering, the hovering.
I've jumped off some huge cliffs and I've glided quite a bit. I'm like, I don't know if that would be able to sustain that much time, but it's just fun. There's just a lot of really fun mechanics in this game to just play around with and just play. It's just really, really, really fun to play. And that is also because this game, even though sometimes walking around is tedious, this game is gorgeous. Let's move on to the art. What do you think about the art?
So it is really beautiful, and the texture mapping, the layouts. I mean, there's so many little details.
All the areas, like you start off in the desert, and it's kind of plain, but then there's forest, there's swamps, and all the dungeons. All the dungeons are like key set pieces, and they are amazing.
Yeah, they really like. You know how sometimes when you're playing, specifically JRPGs, and it feels like they just use the same texture map.
And they're just like, oh, well, now you're in a red cave.
Yeah, and then
now you're in a blue cave.
Then you're in a green cave. This,
and you could say there's some to that as well, but like, just again, going back to that scale sense, that's just, it feels like this world is alive. Even though there's not much to do in it, aside from like quests, there's not, whatever, it's still just really nice to look at, and there's nothing wrong with that, I don't think.
No, little things like watching the weather or looking at the water.
I've heard some people complain, one of their biggest complaints was that it's like a big open world, but there's not much to do in it. But if it was like a Grand Theft Auto where there's like a bunch of things on the map, I think that would go even further away from what Final Fantasy is, and kind of
I feel like if it was built like a Bethesda game, I think that would take away from the point of the game.
Can you imagine if there were just 1,000 quests on the map? At some point, you do get like a lot of quests from people, but it's not an infinite amount of quests that it could be.
It feels like that would be too much, and that's probably why I never get very far in like Skyrim or Fallout, because I feel like I get overwhelmed by the quest numbers.
Oh, it's daunting. For sure.
Yeah.
Essentially, I will get to the story area, do some side quests to kind of beef my level up, do the story, maybe do that thing again, and just kind of going back and forth and kind of just like mixing it up with a flavor. I never do too long of one thing, essentially. So my pacing is pretty well. Even though I just want to play this game just non-stop until I'm done, I am not reviewing this specifically for like any site, so I want to take my time. I waited 10 years. I don't want to like blast through it and be like, well, I'm done now, and now what, or whatever. But be sure I will be writing a review or some kind of post-mortem on this thing, or I have so many ideas of a bunch of different articles I want to specifically talk about, especially one comparing it to Metal Gear Solid 5 and why I like it so much. But I'm kind of getting all these points out right now.
Yeah.
The whole world is beautiful, of course, but like the monster design is also one of the best things I've seen in a Final Fantasy or any JRPG in like such a long time.
I like that the monsters feel different,
and it's like takes on classic monsters redone, maybe making them like a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
And everything feels like a thread. And I've been playing so many RPGs where they have a set amount of monsters, and then
they just do like recolors.
Yep, color palettes. It's like, okay. And sometimes that happens like way too fast. Like, I just did that 2 dungeons ago. You really guys didn't have any other kind of plan here? And like all the boss monsters are just epic, and even fighting like the soldiers, which can get annoying sometimes when you're trying to go around and then they just drop out of nowhere, which is like the closest thing that this game has to
random encounters. Yeah.
But they're still fun to just destroy, especially when you use Blizzard on them, and they're robots, so like they look like they're like freezing their joints or whatever, and it's just awesome. The mind flares in the ice cavern were just fantastic.
Oh man,
too.
those mind flares were freaky, and God, that one, I think it's one of the first king weapons you get, and there's those goblins.
Yeah, even like the piss ant goblins from all the Final Fantasies. They are creepy, and they're fast, and just...
Yeah, they are. Holy crap.
Just that sense of... Like I said, that
Real
sense
threats,
of danger is just awesome. It's just like, these are monsters. These things could kill us. Have you ran into an Iron Giant? Because that's something that appeared in the middle of the road at night, and I was like... No,
you just see this big freaking arm come out of nowhere.
It's so cool. And then, actually getting into that... so, like I said, I'm in Chapter 7... and you just got done with chapter 4,
Yeah.
and that is
I just did the Archon.
the Titan fight,
Yeah.
and that scale is awesome. I
Oh
wouldn't say that
man.
I wouldn't say that the fight is fun because it's kind of waiting around to do stuff,
Yeah.
and it's just kind of more fun to like watch essentially. But again, that scale, that's just the tip of the iceberg. Like from that moment, there's a couple other points with like summons. And it's just like just unbelievable. It's just so there's so many fantastic things about this game. I remember this, I don't want to talk about too much about it, but I think Titan has been pretty much shown in a lot of coverage. So I think that's kind of a good actually point where you stopped playing to kind of talk about
It was.
that.
It
But
was. I can see like now that I'm done with it, why it's a good stopping point, or a good
yeah.
point for us to talk about.
And how many hours would you say you have in the game right now?
I think I'm close to 14.
Okay, so I mean, we definitely have a good sense of what this game is. Of course, something could throw me as soon as I turn this game back on, because that is definitely what I'm going to be doing. But I think just it's a good stopping point for now. I definitely want to talk about this closer to the end of the game, or maybe just wait until we're both like done with the game or something, because it's just so many other things to talk about. But to save it for fans, I don't want to spoil anything, and I don't
Yeah.
think we talked about too many spoilers really at all. Just kind of a lot of basic things about what we love. But for old school Final Fantasy fans, I know this may be not what you want, because you may want like turn-based mechanics, maybe
Mm-hmm.
action role-playing things is not what you want. Some of these things may getting away. Maybe you like the long cutscenes, and Shay and I have played every single one for the most part.
I think
And
3 is the only one I've actually missed, and the MMOs.
don't destroy my point.
All right, we've played Final Fantasies.
And a lot of RPGs, so it's not like we're coming.
Like,
We are very hardcore fans, but at the same time, I can see how people might not like it, but
I feel.
it's something different, and you
Yeah.
gotta kind of accept that Final Fantasy is always trying to push itself forward.
Right, and as
And
during that big conference, that's what the director of Square Enix said. They were always pushing it. It was always going to be growing and changing, striving to challenge itself.
some people don't like 7 because that went away from the old school Final Fantasy stuff of like the crystals and all that stuff, and it's more about technology and kind of a darker setting. And
Yeah,
some people didn't like that, and there's always people that some people don't like certain Final Fantasy. Like, I don't like this one because it doesn't have this, or I don't like this one because of whatever. And this game has been dragged through the mud for kind of 10
right.
years because of its weird cycle. So people have this image of it, and there's the expectation. And for me, I think it exceeds my expectations on so
I'm
many
very
levels.
happy with what they did.
No, it's not, of course, perfect, but
No,
yeah, just like what you said, I'm very, very happy with it.
and
Uh, uh,
I think the biggest thing I want to put out there is that I'm glad this game took the time it needed. And I know not every game gets a chance to do that. Sometimes you're on deadlines and you're on budget. I'm glad that this one took as long as it did to come out, because this is the product we got, and as
it feels like it is a 10-year thing
it feels like a real labor of love. You can
for
see
both
it.
good and bad. There
Yeah.
are things in there where it's just like some of these things don't gel together, and you can tell like Westerners like this. Let's put that in there. And it's
Right.
not all good,
Uh,
but all the small things do not compare to all of like the pluses and everything.
yeah.
Especially, and I think like the game is the gameplay is very solid, and that's very
Mhm.
important. It's an open world. It's not linear except for some of the story bits, but even those linear
Yeah.
parts like the dungeons are fantastic.
Yeah.
It's really fun to play, and the story's not convoluted. It's good. There's not a lot there, but yeah, it's a really cool
It
road trip movie that's
it's
very
a hardcore
fantasy
bromance.
based. Yeah, that's basically our general thoughts on Final Fantasy 15. We'll hopefully talk about this at some point again, but that is our basic thoughts. Anything you want to close out on?
If you're on the fence about this game, uh, I'd say just give it a try. It might not be your flavor, but you might surprise yourself. You might find yourself connecting to these characters like they are your new best friends.
And it is really hard to like put this forth in demos. which is so weird because this game is kind of a good sense of what the game is when that came out, and the Platinum demo is so not anything what the game is. So it's like,
random.
Why did you do that? It's very weird. So I gotta say, you gotta like try it for yourself, but there's no other way to really accept to. I guess, if you have a rental thing or you're subscribed to GameFly, maybe try it out. But I hope you'll be pleasantly surprised. It is worth the wait. It is not some weird trash mess that I and you and everybody else has been like worrying about. Again, not perfect. It's not going to please everybody, but what game is,
Right.
That has been us, and we will talk to you later. Did you know that was a Reaction Examiner video? If you liked it, you should subscribe to me to keep up with everything that I'm doing. Also, if you have some other interests, like sex for example, check out Tomops, which is a comedy sex podcast thing wherein my best friend and I check out the weird and abnormal and the erotic. And of course, you should support me on Patreon because, hey, I want to make the channel better and I want your help to do so. Plus, if you want to check out my writing, check out Game Jerk, where I have archives and new stuff for all projects, okay? You can find all the stuff and more in the description with the links below. Thanks for watching, and I will see you all next time.